This Hustle CoffeeCast will not be popular with some people. Because I feel like the child in that story, the emperor's new clothes. Coming across a story that said that dear old Bill Gates wants to cut down trees to save the climate. Cut down trees and bury them to save the climate. I want to keep this language, PG friendly. But are you effing kidding me? And so sometimes life will present us with threshold moments. And for many in the world, the events of September the 11th, 2001 were a threshold moment that dictated, when they really looked at what occurred, that dictated that our world and the systems and institutions we had invested our trust in could no longer be trusted, given the aftermath of what occurred, both in terms of the study, the peer-reviewed study from the University of Nebraska that outlined that Building 7 could not have fallen in the way that the official narrative claimed. Okay? Now, so this right there is a threshold moment that goes beyond quote-unquote conspiracy theory. A peer-reviewed, well-respected university publishing its findings, and those findings calling out the impossibility of the official narrative. So then, we come to another threshold moment. And for me, this is the threshold moment of climate change. And therefore, the mainstream narrative, which was proven to be impossible in the case of 9/11. We must then assume that those very same economic forces that are thrusting us towards the climate change net zero agenda may also be peddling, highly likely are peddling, a false official agenda or story. And so when we actually look at the life cycle of electric cars and their batteries and all that has to go into gathering the raw materials, the quote-unquote carbon costs don't stack up, if that was ever the intention in the first place. Okay? And so we must then start to look at, well, what is this entire picture around carbon? And actually, that is not the focus of this CoffeeCast. But it is to say that when I saw that story, knowing how unbelievably, naturally prosperous nature is, it was my threshold moment to say, I can't stay silent on this stuff anymore. Are you effing kidding me? Cutting down trees to save the planet. Come the fudge on. So what is an alternative? What if in fact we aligned with nature, we supported nature, and in seeking to build our businesses, we looked at the principles of nature? And when we start to do that, very quickly another world emerges. A world populated by figures like Victor Schauberger, who invented energy systems that were vastly more powerful than the inputs that they put in. So that is, they demonstrated what is called over unity. That for the input you put in, you get more outputs of energy. And Victor Schauberger was essentially an uneducated forester. That is, he spent many, many years in the ancient Austrian forests observing nature. And he saw how the vortex is at the heart of all nature. And he was able to use this to both develop things like log flumes that could move hundreds of tons more logs than traditional methods, and to develop farming tools that were more supportive of the enzymes and ecosystems within the soil. And to, like I say, develop these propulsion systems simply through observation of nature. And What might this look like for your business? And particularly as an entrepreneur of over 50. Well, we have heard time and again how tired our members and their friends are of the quick fix, quick hack, 9 figures in 9 days kind of offers that the young buck internet marketers out there offer. And what we see there is that they are seeking hacks to force something. Nature does not do hacks. Nature does solid and organic and long-term. And case in point, of course, being the oak tree. It takes 10 years sometimes to create its first acorns, and then year upon year will produce sometimes as much as 10,000 acorns a year, each capable in its own time of producing 10,000 more a year. Very quickly, those numbers start to stack up as unbelievably great. 10,000 multiplied by 10,000 across even 10 years is far more zeros than my brain can even fathom. So, here's where we get to the crux of it. If we would seek natural prosperity, then we must first recognize that perhaps the ultimate false story that has been pushed on all of us is the myth of scarcity. Born of the myth that we are separate from each other and from whatever you might call God, spirit, love. 0 point energy. I'm not into religious terms necessarily, but there is, as we know, an underlying energy that responds to human consciousness. And that this energy, this force, whatever you call it, is also that very same thing that turns the acorn into the oak tree. And when we align with that force, we step into a way of natural abundance, of natural prosperity. And it begins with us, that alignment begins with us believing a story of fundamental abundance versus one of scarcity. And if you are listening to this and you live in the UK, now is the perfect time. Walk out to any hedgerow and you will see just a proliferation of ripe, juicy blackberries. Far more than you could hope to pick. Similarly, I'm driving around seeing apple trees laden with apples at the moment. If we align with nature, nature will provide more prosperously than we can imagine. And the same principles, the very same principles that allow nature to be so abundant, are the very same principles that could power our vehicles without pollution, at a fraction of the cost, that could power our world without pollution at a fraction of the cost. And this idea, this seed, is at the heart of all that drives Greater Life. To know that as we support entrepreneurs over 50, and we support them to let the forces of nature shape them into a force of nature, that we will find ways through nature for us all to thrive. So, today, how can you align with the forces of nature? How can you step into an abundant story? And from there, what can you build?